Here we go.
For 18-year-old Marina Bolter of Bloomfield, Indiana, New Year's Eve of 2014 was much like any other. It was a night of excitement and revelry among those nearest and dearest to her. It was also a night when the adults of her family might just be too socially lubricated to notice or care if she happened to be indulging in a little tipple herself. So as the afternoon drew to a close,
Getting wasted.
Marina, who had a part-time job working as a grocery store clerk at the IGA grocery store, boisterously clocked out of her shift and began the journey home to get ready for the New Year's party that she had been planning on going to. Needless to say, she was excited to blow off some
I haven't
steam.
done shit for New
You
Year's
see,
in
2014
years.
had not been an easy year for Marina. During the summer of 2013, Marina had discovered she was pregnant, and after the birth of her child in April of 2014, Marina had to do some growing
The
up.
baby like he's
fast.
a damn dog.
She got herself the grocery store job, trying to put her wild child days behind her, and committed herself to being a responsible, loving mother. But God laughs at well-laid plans, and tragedy was about to befall her. In August of 2014, a violent argument erupted at the family home between her older sister and her boyfriend. The argument quickly became physical, one in which household items were thrown at the home, and in a horrendous stroke of misfortune, Marina's baby was injured in the melee. Neighbors happened to catch wind of the injury to the infant and swiftly reported the incident to Child Protective Services. A social worker was dispatched to the home, who, with a heavy heart, made the decision to remove the child from the home and place them into foster care. Marina was devastated
Wasn't
and
even
vowed
her
to do
fault.
everything she could to win back her child. But it was not
But
to
I guess
be,
it don't matter. You live there.
for yet more tragedy was to strike Marina and her family, because that New Year's Eve, after she clocked out of work, she would never arrive home. In fact, as people would come to learn, it was as if though she had simply dropped off the face of the earth. One of the first places we might wish to look in order to get answers as to what happened to her is her relationship with a young man by the name of DJ Lockhart. Marina had a rather
DJ
tempestuous
Lockhart.
on-again, off-again love affair with DJ, who was the father of Marina's child. They were young, foolish, and headed in two very different directions in life. But as Marina's mother insisted in the years after her disappearance, they were very much in love. Despite what many have said about DJ possibly being responsible for Marina's disappearance, there are just as many who are or were close to the Bolter and Lockhart families that insisted that DJ was only guilty of loving her too much, given that he was devastated beyond belief at her having vanished on New Year's Eve. Yet there is another man in Marina's life who we must consider as a possible suspect, or who at least
she
may
with all
have had a
these
hand in facilitating her
dingy,
disappearance.
dirty ass motherfuckers.
In late 2014, Marina and DJ were not seeing eye to eye at all, and to all outside observers, it seemed they had definitely broken up. This was mainly because Marina seemed to be seeing other people, mainly an older man named Toby, who she seemed to be rather secretive over. But she was being secretive about him for good reason. You see, not only was this older man married, but he was actually an old friend of the Bolter family, one that had known Marina's parents ever since she was born.
Some bitch.
Toby acted as something of a sugar daddy towards Marina, helping her out financially until she was able to afford the rent on her own apartment. However, it's important to note that Marina having her own place was one of the stipulations for regaining custody of her own child. It appears that Toby was less of a serious relationship option and more of a means to an end. But as much as Marina tried to keep the relationship
like
a secret,
that shit.
in a small town like Bloomfield, it's only a matter of time before even the deepest secrets see the light of day. And in the process, Toby's wife, who was also an old friend of the Bolter family, discovered her husband's infidelities. And shockingly, it was actually Marina's own mother who informed her of it. So as it turns out, the New Year's Eve party that Marina was supposedly headed to that
his
night
wife
was
did
none
something
other
to him.
than Toby's. But as she strolled out of work, calling Toby on her cell phone to confirm a few last-minute arrangements, she spotted someone walking towards her across the store's parking lot. According to Toby, Marina's last words to him before she hung up the phone were, "Uh-oh, it's DJ." Marina did not call Toby back.
She looked at
In
him
that
like,
surprise parking lot encounter, DJ straight up told Marina that he knew where she was planning on going for New Year's Eve, adding that he didn't approve of her relationship with Toby whatsoever.
you ain't gotta
He
approve
then
of it.
pleaded with her to attend a New Year's party with him instead, insisting they should work on repairing their relationship for the sake of their child. Marina replied that it was not the time or place to be having such a discussion, that she had made plans with Toby and she was sticking to them. DJ was furious, but supposedly took the rejection on the chin before offering to give her a ride home so she might get out of the cold. But it seems that Marina actually managed to get a ride home.
Damn, all these fucking men.
Whether or not she did this out of pure
What a
happenstance
customer.
or begged to be taken home because she was afraid of DJ is
What was
entirely
wrong
up
with
for
her car?
speculation. But one thing is abundantly clear. The following day, Marina failed to show up for her scheduled New Year's Day shift at the IGA store. Knowing full well that she would head out to a party after work, Marina's employers were initially unsurprised by her unauthorized absence. There had probably been some drinking involved, and with drinking comes hangovers, and with hangovers comes tardiness. But still, they tried her cell phone to see if she was going to be heading into work at some point, yet there was no answer.
Yeah, I'm gonna be late. Or
IGA
I'm calling
management
in.
then got in touch with Marina's mom, hoping she might be able to provide some answers on her daughter's whereabouts. But Marina's mom hadn't seen her either, and the news that she had failed to show up for work only succeeded in worrying her. She headed over to Marina's apartment, using her spare key to let herself in. There were no signs of any break-ins or struggles, but Marina's purse, cell phone, and keys were all missing, along with her work uniform. This meant that, in all likelihood, she never made it home from work that evening. Marina's mom immediately reported her missing, and a police investigation began shortly afterward. Obviously, given the fact that she seemed to have disappeared immediately after leaving work, police stated very publicly that they wished to speak to the customer who had apparently driven her home that evening. It took 3 whole weeks for the man to come forward, but we can understand why he might be nervous. In an interview with investigating police, the man claimed to have dropped her off at a pizza place near to her home. The restaurant was closed, but Marina apparently openly stated that she didn't want the man to know where she lived. Although this might seem like an unusual thing to say, when it was put to Marina's mom, she attested that it was just the kind of thing her daughter would say, and that to her, it was a totally believable story. This was backed up when the man was made to undergo a polygraph test and passed with flying colors.
Damn, so it's another, let me guess, another dude that she met that
did
night.
all he could to help the family find her, even if it was to no avail. He was said to be absolutely bereft about her disappearance and was never quite the same afterward. Marina's mother spoke highly of the young woman and always insisted that he couldn't have been involved in her vanishing. However, Marina's father and his extended family have perennially viewed the boy with suspicion, openly stating that he had the most to gain from her having disappeared. But the fact remains that we will never truly know if he was responsible, as we will never get a full confession.
He kill himself?
You see, DJ took to drinking heavily after Marina went missing, getting into more and more trouble with the law and the local populace. So much so that he got into a violent altercation on February 12th, 2015, one which ended in him being stabbed to death by the man he had gotten in a fight with. And then there's Toby, Marina's old lover, who had given her thousands of dollars to try to help her get her life together. He was one of the last people Marina spoke with on the evening of her disappearance, and one might think that he would cooperate fully with the investigation into her whereabouts. But by all accounts, Toby acted very suspiciously in the months that followed. He apparently stopped talking to Marina's mother altogether, and only involved himself with Marina's father, almost aggressively asserting that DJ was to blame for her disappearance. However, there is another person of interest in this case who we can simply not ignore as a suspect, a man by the name of Vernon Gale Briner. Vernon was a convicted murderer who had been previously sent to prison for the murder of a 19-year-old girl, and had only been released from the penitentiary in 2012. As it turns out, Vernon had a solid alibi for his whereabouts at the time, with an employer testifying that he was at work at the time.
The fuck
Vernon
is
also passed
this?
a polygraph test in which he was straight up
The
asked if he
fuck
had
is up
done
with his
anything in
hair?
Marina, with the results indicating that he was telling the truth when he said he had nothing to do with her going missing. To this day, there have been no significant clues as to what happened to Marina Bolter. No dead bodies had ever been found that could have matched up to her DNA or description. No one outside of her small hometown has ever seen anything matching her description either. For all intents and purposes, it is as if she just vanished from the face of the earth. It's a terrifying prospect that, even in the digital age, with man's ability to track and trace using the plethora of electronic devices we employ in our daily lives, that a girl as well known and well loved as Marina could simply disappear, never to be seen again. There were many suspects in her case, many people who could have snatched her up and disposed of her in a way that no one would ever find her. But only one man is guilty. Only one person really knows what happened to her, and how her final moments on this earth played out.
Oh, I was like, was it him, or they
And to
gonna
our
switch up
knowledge,
and show the
that man is still
different
walking
men
the
who was with her?
streets of the United States,
Maybe all these
knowing
motherfuckers
he
killed her.
committed perhaps
All
the
four of
worst
them.
crime imaginable, and knowing that no one can touch him for it. The Melbourne suburb of Pakenham is one of the wealthiest areas in all of Australia. The area is home to several large mansions that house some of Melbourne's most successful business people, boasting sprawling estates with luxury amenities such as swimming pools, boating lakes, and even small-scale golf courses. It's one of these mansions that 45-year-old Michael Griffey called home. He lived with estranged wife Diane, along with children that Michael hardly saw due to his busy work schedule. He would often spend long periods of time living in an apartment he owned in Melbourne itself, using it as a kind of base of operations for his many business ventures, including the parent company D&M Plaster Transport. On December 31st of 2004, Diane and the children were hosting a huge party to celebrate the coming of the new year. Scores of guests swarmed around the grounds of their stunning estate, eating canapes, drinking champagne, and looking back over a year that
Why
had
do I
brought
think this
many
is a
of them
wedding?
great financial
Because I was
success.
like, New Year's. And
But
that's,
Michael
oh yeah, the
himself
video
was nowhere
is
to be
New
found.
Year horror story.
When asked, Diane replied that he was home, but that she had not seen him, and was probably milling around somewhere in a drunken haze, socializing with business associates or eyeing up the young cocktail waitresses that floated around with silver trays laden with luxury food and drink. But the reality was something far more disturbing.
Man, these dudes'
Because
eyes.
although Michael was indeed on the property, just not in the state his loved ones imagined him to be. Because on the evening of January 2nd, 2005, his wife Diane, along with their 17-year-old daughter Cassandra, walked into one of the second-floor office spaces to find Michael lying dead in a pool of his own blood. The mansion was vast, with so many rooms that Michael was found to have been dead for days, simply lying in a room that none of the family had been in for quite some time. The investigating coroner determined through tissue analysis that Michael had been bludgeoned to death at around 3 p.m. on December 29th.
Damn, 3
Whoever had
p.m.
murdered him had then
I think it
wrapped
was like
his
3
bloody
a.m.
corpse
Like
in a string
middle of the
bed
damn
sheet
day.
before attempting to hide it under a tarp. There were 3 large and seemingly fatal wounds on his head, and one obvious defensive injury to his wrist, indicating that he had attempted to fight off his attacker before being overpowered and killed with a blunt object. Police discovered that Michael's wallet and cell phone had been stolen from the property, and that 1,000 Australian dollars had been removed from a safe that only 3 people, one of which was Michael, had the combination to. They also found that 2 pages had been torn from a journal that his family said had a meticulous record of his movements and business dealings. Given that Diane was the beneficiary of both of Michael's life insurance policies, which were valued at almost $2 million,
damn,
she was one of the first people to be considered as a suspect.
what kind of life insurance that is?
Police discovered that not only had she written bad checks in the time before he was killed, but that in the short time before his death, Michael had complained to his friends that his wife was mishandling money, and that he could use this fact to gain the upper hand when it came to dividing up the family finances in the event of a divorce. It was also discovered that Michael was
What
having
the
multiple
fuck is
affairs
with
and
this
financially supporting other women,
American
and that the main
Revolution ass
reason he was
hairdo he
staying in
got?
central Melbourne so much was not because of business dealings, but because it afforded him time to indulge in his extramarital affairs. However, he had not done a very good job of keeping this a secret from Diane, and text message exchanges made this very evident indeed. However, Diane's lawyer prevented her from commenting on how this made her feel, and this, along with the
Sure,
other
it pissed her
evidence of
off.
her financial misdealing, made her the #1 suspect in her husband's murder.
You know, I'm gonna kill that
She was arrested in
motherfucker.
2007, and preliminary hearings began shortly after. Yet the case was not to be a simple one by any stretch of the imagination. Not only was there simply not enough evidence to really charge Diana with Michael's murder, but a number of other twists and turns in the case meant that pinning down a definitive suspect became almost impossible. Bizarrely, during the preliminary hearings of the case against Diane, her and Michael's daughter, Cassandra, the very same one who had found his body on that fateful day in January of 2005, actually attempted to confess to his murder. Despite her insistence that it was she that beat her father bloody in the days after Christmas before attempting to hide his body with a sheet, police noticed a series of inconsistencies in her story and dismissed it as a false attempt
I
to
wonder
implicate
if
herself in something she had
multiple
nothing to
people.
do with. But the
I
question,
wonder if this that thing where a bunch of different people are involved and no one, if no one like really, are they all, not they all confess, but they all tell like different stories. Now she's confessing, but they all tell like different stories and they can't collaborate the story, so then no one gets charged. Because I think I've heard that heard about that happening before.
would cast a shadow on the entire affair for the duration of the
Damn.
investigation.
Excuse the fuck
Just
out
why
of me.
exactly would Cassandra want police to
Look
believe
how
that she
fast
was
you
the
are.
murderer? Police also investigated Michael's son, Kenny, who was something of a playboy, living a fast lifestyle with fast cars
He
and
looked
even
just like
faster
his
women.
dad.
There was every reason to
Except
believe
dumber.
that he too needed money, but again, there was very little evidence to suggest that he had even had it in him to plot the murder of his own father, let alone
Basically
go
saying he's
through
too
with it.
stupid.
Police managed to secure an interview with one of Michael's mistresses, a woman by the name of Jillian Gold, who had apparently been engaged in an affair with Michael for the better part of 5 years.
Damn.
She knew that she was not the only woman who Michael had been seeing,
Damn.
but since he
Michael
had
was a
essentially
hoe.
funded her lifestyle and was not written to his will, there was absolutely no reason to believe that she was the one who had killed him. However, there was a chance that since Michael was known to partake in sugar daddy-style relationships, that breaking it off with one of his so-called sugar babies had resulted in an argument that may have resulted in a kind of revenge killing.
I was thinking
But
that.
since Jillian was completely ignorant of these other women's identities, she couldn't point police in their direction, and the investigation into being an affair-related murder floundered. Police then got in touch with Katrina Fitzpatrick, Michael's sister, who told the police of a rather worrying encounter she shared with her brother in the time before her brother's death. Around a month before he was found dead, Michael got in touch with Katrina in an attempt to arrange a meetup with her. She had dithered over a time and place, citing her busy work schedule, but Michael had almost violently insisted that they meet as soon as possible. They met in a high-end cafe in downtown Melbourne,
Violently.
and from the get-go, Katrina noticed that Michael appeared to be acting extremely shadily. She had apparently tried to confront him on the reason for his off behavior several times, but was rebuffed on each occasion, with Michael insisting on reminiscing about happier times, including their childhood
Man, bitch,
together.
I didn't come here for that
By
shit.
the end of the
Could have said this
conversation,
shit over the phone.
Katrina, admitting to be extremely worried for her brother's mental state, and pressed him for one final time about the reason for their meeting. Michael barely said another word, instead opting to present her with an expensive piece of jewelry, beginning to cry as he told her he loved her. Michael then departed the meeting, and Katrina never saw him alive again.
Like he was worried about
There
something.
happens to be another interesting aspect to this case, albeit one we might struggle to fit into the bigger picture.
That would
In the year
indicate he knew he was
2008,
going
almost
to
4
die.
years after Michael's murder, it was discovered that his plaster transport company was facing dire financial difficulties in the run-up to his killing. Michael owed over $1 million in taxes to the Australian government, as well as owing $100,000 in loans to other creditors.
Oh,
A lot of this loan money could be accounted for, but some of it could not, and it's possible that Michael owed money to some people that it might be extremely dangerous to owe money to.
yeah, loan to
The kind of people that,
the
if it appeared that
Australian
the debt
mafia.
might not be repaid, might simply have Michael killed as a warning to others. So the question remains, just who killed Michael Griffey, and what exactly were their motives? There was no doubt that Michael seemed to know he was in danger. The teary encounter with his sister is a testament to that. There's also the possibility that he believed or knew that he wasn't safe in his own home, which is why he stayed so often in the downtown Melbourne apartment. The fact that he seems to have been murdered in his own home is all the evidence we require to back this theory up. There's every chance that Michael was murdered as a result of his debts, but the fact that his daughter tried to confess to his murder throws a huge wrench into the works of such a theory. She was obviously trying to cover for him, but whether or not she was trying to cover for her mother or her brother is another question entirely. I think we can all
Yeah, but why
agree
would
that
you?
this is frankly
Why
terrifying.
would you admit to doing
That
some
someone's
shit
own
like that?
family might well be involved in their murder, and that those that are supposed to love and cherish us are just as capable of snuffing out our lives in the name of greed or malice. Whether or not answers
Your
will finally
family
come out
usually the
regarding
one
his
that
death is anyone's guess, but
that
for the
fuck you
time
over.
being, Michael's death will
You
remain
can't
yet
spell
another unsolved
family
mystery,
without
and his
lies.
killer is free to walk the streets.
No, this happened just last night,
heard.
and I'm still a little shaken up over it. I'll try to retell the story exactly as it happened, but the occurrence may have fogged my memory a bit. My name is Jason. I'm a 17-year-old
Jason.
male, and I work second shift at a local Walmart in a small central city. At about 10 p.m., after my work period was over, I was driving home when I decided to stop for gas. In retrospect, it was really stupid to stop at all. The gas station was poorly lit, and it was completely vacant of other customers, but I knew the shady areas of my town, and this was not usually one of them. I pulled up to the pump, expecting nothing less than just a quick in and out visit to the station, and began fueling my car. I waited for about a minute or so until I heard that prompting click of the gas nozzle. Just as I closed my fuel cap, I grabbed my receipt and began making my way to my driver's side door. An unsettling looking woman pulled up right beside me, regardless of all the other surrounding pumps that she could have gone to. I didn't think too much of it though, given that I was just leaving anyway, and just continued
Man,
on
that
to
bitch
open my
looking
car
right
door.
at her. Sure.
But then I hear her shout something. "Hey boy, come here," while then motioning me over with her
Boy. Hey, boy, come here. I've been like, bitch, I'm a man. Boy. Fuck out of here. I'm like, hey, boy. Hey, boy. Don't you come around this house.
bony, tattered fingers. Me being the friendly person that I am,
Friendly, man.
decided to engage in conversation with her.
I wouldn't
despite
even
my
say
immense
nothing to
feeling
her.
of
I just looked at
uneasiness.
it. Like, man.
I conferred back, then sang, "Yes, miss. How can I help you?"
What the fuck you on?
I now realized that I should have put more consideration into my words, as she then said, "Yeah, I need you to come over here and pump my gas for me," which I thought to be a
I
bit
mean,
odd,
you need to kiss
considering
my
she
ass.
was perfectly capable, and she didn't even give me a reason
Then,
as
bitch,
to why
I
she couldn't
don't
do
work
it
here.
herself. But stupidly, I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt. I started walking over to her vehicle.
See,
when
this is what
I
happens
then
with
picked
being,
up on a bit of a
being
red flag.
nice. Get you
She had already turned her
stabbed.
car off as if it was ready to be filled up, except that her tank lid wasn't on that side of the car. Once again, I just gave her the benefit of the doubt and then thought, well, maybe she just forgot which side it was on, and continued
bitch
around
ain't
to the
forget
pump
what
near
side
her
it's
car. And then I saw it. The second big red flag, just on the other side of her car, was a light
They
that I could
looking like
vaguely see
we
through her
about to
window,
stab the
hence
shit out of this
illuminating
motherfucker.
everything within the back seat of the car.
This messed
Even
up,
through the
cracked
densely
up
tinted
leg.
window of her sliding van door, I could vaguely see the silhouette of at least two grown men staring right at me. When she noticed I had saw them, her entire demeanor completely changed.
You wasn't gonna see them?
Her face
Big
looked
mother-
cold as snow, and then turned into an angry, frustrated look. And that was it for me. There were too many bells that were going off in my head telling me to get the hell out of there. Just as I began to back up towards my car, she started screaming at me, demanding me to come back.
Nah, bitch.
I then bolted to my driver's side door, which was luckily left unlocked, turned on my engine, and then threw it into drive. I booked the hell out of that gas station without a second thought. Luckily, they didn't
She
appear
didn't even
to
have
follow
it on
me
the right
once I got onto the
side.
more far-populated interstate. It also didn't occur to me to contact the police at the time, since I was so in shock. I just really hope they didn't find another victim because of me not informing the proper authorities about it.
Oh, they
It's a
did. They
really
definitely
scary
found
world
another
out
victim
there.
and fucked
So
him
if
up
you ever have
extra
an
hard
uneasy
because you
feeling
got
in your
away.
gut like that, trust it. To both those creepy men and that woman, I just pray and hope I never see you guys again.
First off, yeah, it's a major red flag when a bitch get out her car talking about, "Hey boy, come here and pump my gas." Like, first off, if you have some type of disability, you can go inside the gas station and ask one of the attendees, "Hey, I can pump my gas." And I think by law, I'm not sure if that's like statewide, well, not statewide, but nationwide, or if it's like based on states. It sound like something that'd be more nationwide. Like somebody has a physical disability and they can't pump their own gas, but they can drive. Somebody might need to help them. That you go in there and ask them to help you. Don't just ask some stranger sitting up there, ask them to help you pump gas. Like, what the. And then it's like the way she said it, it's like she didn't even say it like politely. Like, hey, excuse me, yeah, I have trouble. Can you help me pump gas, something like that? Maybe if it's a young person, they never pump gas for and they don't really know what they're doing, they might ask something like that. But like you, that was the first red flag. I wouldn't have been like, hell no, I ain't helping you. Unless you ask me rudely, like that. Sounds like, hey boy, come here. Yeah, fuck out of here.
Back during summer breaks when I was a kid, I was pretty much glued to my mom during the daytime. Everywhere she went, I went too, as I guess she just didn't trust me to stay home alone. I can't blame her. I was definitely a little menace when
But you
my
can't be
age was
trusted,
still
you
in
little
single
bastard.
digits. But actually, maybe she should have left me home alone because taking me everywhere with her resulted in the single scariest moment of my childhood. So, one day, we head out on a grocery run real early in the morning, and since I was still half
The
asleep,
fuck
I pretty much refused to get out of the car. Since she was only planning on being a couple of
kind of
minutes at
car
the
is
most,
that?
she agreed, then scurried off into the store as I closed my eyes and decided to take a nap. Oh, an important point. I climbed into the back seat to do this, then cuddled up under the blanket that my mom kept back
Don't
there.
tell me you're about to get
Keep this in
carjacked.
mind for what comes next. The next thing I know,
Oh
I
god,
hear the car door opening again, so I open my eyes thinking, wow, that was fast. And that's when I see that the person who just sat
this happened recently in Chicago. Uh, Somebody, because we had a lot of carjackings up here the past year, and somebody did this where they carjacked somebody. I think they left a car running and left a kid in the car. I think it was they left they left their car running or they got held up because it was multiple stories of people getting held up. But this one there was a child in the car because I got an Amber Alert over my phone, which I thought was interesting because I don't live in the city of Chicago. I live like about 30 minutes away from it, away from the city limits, not downtown. But I live like 45 minutes from downtown. But well, no traffic, about 45 minutes. But it was something similar to this where they got in their car and just drove off with the Indian. They didn't know the kid was in the back. And then I think they found the car later on with the kid still in it. I guess they saw the kid on the back and they just abandoned because apparently a lot of these people robbing are kids and they've been just stealing cars and like joyriding them and then leaving them when they run out of gas and shit like that. I haven't heard anything about them like selling them chopping them up, anything like that. That's it. So a lot of the ones that stories that I've followed, they've been just leaving them. I guess when they run out because they don't want to stop and get gas and all like that. So just like, well, I did what I wanted to do in it, so that's it.
Down in the driver's seat is not my
Oh
mom.
my God, look at this
It's some dude
motherfucker's
with a shaven
head.
head, and I still remember all the scabs on the back of his head as he started doing something under the dash. Something
He's trying
which
to
I
hotwire the
now
car.
know was hot wiring or whatever you want to call it. I remember being so scared that all I could do was watch, thinking, I don't know you. What in God's name are you doing my mom's car? I didn't expect him to start it because even though I was incredibly young, I knew that he had to have those special keys to make the car move.
So how young
But
were
then
you?
out of
Special
nowhere,
keys.
the engine starts,
Mm,
after which the guy
yeah.
shuts the door, starts driving my mom's car out of the parking lot. Only then did I start to scream, because it hit me that I might never actually see my mom again. This random guy wasn't just stealing my mom's car, he was stealing me too. The moment the screams left my mouth, the guy slammed on the brakes so hard that it almost threw me off the back seats. He spins around, and I'll never forget how this guy had actual facial tattoos. These are
Those are
scary enough to see on
tattoos.
another adult, but since I was only like a
Just
kid
look
at
like
the
he just
time,
dirt on his
I
face.
just figured this dude was a straight up demon. He looks at me and then just screams, "Get out of the car, kid." I didn't even have to be told twice. Even though I was still in my PJs, I practically jumped out of the car, still bawling, and just ran towards the grocery store as the car drove off. I can only imagine how horrible it must have been for my mom to have her kid come sprinting into the store in floods of tears, screaming, "Mom, Mom, someone just tried to take me away," then having to piece together all the info to realize that she almost lost her only son. These days, I totally take blame for the whole thing. I shouldn't have been such a lazy little brat, and the whole thing would just be a non-event to me. It'd be the day our car vanished, not the day I almost accidentally got kidnapped. I always tell my mom not to feel guilty about it, as basically all is well that ends well, right? But still, the whole thing definitely tops the list of my most frightening childhood
That gotta be some
memories.
scary shit. At least he would just like get out of the car. He
On
ain't trying to,
Christmas Eve,
he ain't turned out to be a
2015,
fucking
I was
pedophile. He's
partying
just a
on the
car
rooftop
thief.
of a high-rise building in New York City. There was a small, I guess you could call it, platform area where chairs and tables had been set up, and all around the rails someone had hung up red and green Christmas lights. There was about 6 of us on the platform drinking and smoking and taking in the view of the city, but with the wind it was just too cold to stay out there for long. I was just visiting
Yeah,
the city
New
with
York
friends, and
on
once
New
I had my
Year's?
fill of the cold,
Sheesh.
I went back inside and
freezing
mingled
and
with
you
the
on a
people who
high-rise
worked in the
building?
office. After another 45 minutes or so, I went back outside to have a cigarette and found myself alone on the platform. I walked to the edge and leaned out over the side, the wind nearly ripping the cigarette out from between my fingers. I turned around and put my elbows on the railing and looked up at the building behind me. It had one of those tall spires with a flashing red light on the top to alert low-flying planes. As I looked at it, I paused, and my cigarette fell from my lips. Something was on the spire.
Oh boy.
Something alive.
Fucking demon.
Distracted before by the wind and the faint sounds of
Fucking
traffic below,
Beelzebub. There.
I hadn't heard the sound of something hard tapping against metal. The red glow of the tower light flashed on and off, and I could faintly make out something wrapped around like a snake moving down the spire, and the shine of light reflecting off its body as the scarlet hue illuminated it for a few seconds at a time. I stood stunned and slowly went for my phone to take a video. My body was moving slowly, as if instinct was telling me any sudden movements would be a mistake. I dug through the pockets in my purse blindly, looking for my phone, not taking my eyes off the thing. It was definitely moving, sliding down the pole like a single droplet of water moving down an icicle. I remember thinking, should I be screaming? As soon as my hand found my cell phone, the thing spread 2 massive bat-like wings. For context, there was a standard-sized American flag hanging vertically on the landing just
El
beneath the spire,
Chupacabra.
where I presumed maintenance
Or
people
not
would stand.
the Jersey
Each
Devil.
wing was easily twice the size of the flag. I dropped my purse and phone and sprinted back inside the office, catching my foot and falling flat on my face upon the carpet. I felt a whoosh of cold air behind me that hit me hard like a wave on the beach. I started wailing and choking on my own breath, and was convinced at any moment I would hear alarms and would see spotlights combing the city. I mean, I couldn't have been the only one to have seen it. This was New York City, one of the most densely populated areas in the country. I screamed for someone to call the cops and started frantically changing the channels on the TV, convinced that Anderson Cooper or somebody was going to make a breaking
Why
announcement
was
about
you
some
assume
creature
that
flying
somebody
through the
just
skies
everybody
above New
just saw
York,
this already?
but there was nothing. A dozen people tried to calm me down, and I sobbed and told them that there had been something outside, something that had wings. I went into the bathroom and vomited, not because I was worried about the creature, but because everything else happening around me seemed so normal, and no one was reacting. Someone ended up calling an
They probably
ambulance for
think you're
me,
too
and
drunk.
the attendants checked me out in the hallway, but I was fine. I wasn't even close to being drunk. I made quite a scene at that party, and I have not been invited back. They call me the Dragon Chick, and no one believes my story.
Dragon shit.
My therapist told me that I should write all this down to reflect upon it and try to make sense of it. This is the 5th time I have, and nothing is becoming any clearer. Please, someone out there, tell me you've seen it too. I need to know that I'm not crazy.
I have not. But I mean, hey, if you saw it. But I mean, you gotta admit, I mean, that sounds a bit crazy. Like you at a New Year's Eve party, everybody drinking, and they think you drunk, and you come running inside talking about something you seen a bat-like creature, like giant bat-like creature that is crawling down the side of a building. Like people go like, you alright? Like, she's like, I ain't been invited back. You came in there like talking crazy, throwing up. Of course they gonna be like, yeah, that chick crazy. Don't invite her back. Or you would think they invite her back and then mock her the whole time. But sheesh. I did not expect that story. I thought it was gonna be more like the other ones where it's just, you know, kidnapping here, murder there, altercation over here. But it's like, no, I saw a fucking man bat hanging out on the outside of a skyscraper. But anyway, hope you all enjoyed my reaction one. If you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. Make sure to subscribe if you're new here. Hit that bell. You want to be notified when I upload new videos. Comment down below. Share this video. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.